Yeah, welcome back to Star Spangled Gamblers. I'm your host, Keen Dog. I'm here with sort of a surprise cast and crew, although I guess it's not quite so much a surprise. We tweeted the other day that we wanted to get Polymarkets on the podcast. We are, as we like to say, your OG political betting podcast. And as some OG gamblers, we've been super frustrated by Predicted and the lack of diversity in their betting opportunities. So why not have the boys connect with the boys? So Shayne is the Shayne of Polymarket. Shayne, do you want to say hi? What's up? Who are you?
What's up? I'm Shayne, and I'm building Polymarket.
That sounds like something that would either be on like a super startup-y webpage or maybe a dating app.
Yeah, that's about how long my dating app profiles are, profile descriptions. But yeah, I mean, I'm a born and raised New Yorker. I am obsessed with markets in all different types of facets, have participated in a lot of different shadow economies, different sort of like, digital goods trading venues and all different weird types of alternative exchanges over the years growing up, and really love markets and think that there's a lot of untapped potential utilizing alternative type of markets that kind of have the primary purpose of information elicitation.
Once again, I still feel like I'm in a dating app for like Mr. Robot fans. So no one understands anything. So what is Polymarkets? Like, I think for most of the people listening to this podcast, including myself, they're like, I need to go buy Bitcoin from someone in China and I can bet on stuff with it. That's like my level of sophistication. So, why don't you tell us, we've got a bunch of questions from our audience, but why don't you tell us in like 5 minutes what Polymarkets is, why it's different, and treat us like idiots, not like investors.
For sure. So first of all, it's Polymarket.
See? You got to start at the kindergarten level.
Yeah. So at a very basic premise, lets people trade information markets, basically put their money where their mouth is on markets that are on like the most highly debated topics. So, right now there's politics, there's coronavirus, just the news in general. And the idea behind it is that, we're in this phase as a society where there's like a fundamental misalignment of incentives in the social news cycle, and that kind of manifests itself where the news and information that's distributed to us is very skewed, because all the platforms that distribute it are optimizing for engagement, getting people glued into their sites instead of actually distributing the truth. So the way that when it comes to like synthesizing opinions that contradict one another and kind of aggregating disparate information, different experts who say they know what they're doing, you can let people put their money where their mouth is and challenge others to do the same and trade these markets. And then, via price discovery, you get this perpetually accurate forecast about the future of a given event, whether something will happen or not. And then there's all other types of cool things you can do. So there's this concept has been around in academia for a while. And, so with Polymarket, we're building that as a product, an information markets platform. And a little bit about what's behind the hood, it's built on a blockchain. There's no Bitcoin. There's no Ether in at least the upcoming version. But the coolest thing about blockchains, and I've been into blockchains for a very long time, particularly Ethereum, since it started. And I've had a lot of time to build up convictions about the best use cases and kind of the paradigm shifts that can be incited and by blockchain tech. And one of the coolest things that's going on is you can create these markets that are on long tail of events, very niche, small scale, but that
we like those.
Yeah, as I know. So the coolest thing about that is this stuff actually exists and it's on chain already. There's protocols, frameworks that are optimized entirely for this. And you think about a crowd like your guys' audience and the Predicted users and whatnot, and it would be awesome for them to be able to use this. But it's not easy. There's a big learning curve, and you can think of Polymarket basically taking these markets that are made possible by blockchains and serving them to a larger audience and making it easier for people to both participate in the markets and, even more importantly, follow the trading, observe market trends, and glean information from that.
So I wanted to make an observation about you, and maybe you can tell me if that has anything to do with your product. So I've noticed that we're doing this on video. A lot of you are listening to this on audio, but there's a YouTube stream that you can find on our blog, starspangled.gamblers.com. But Shayne, your face is on tape. It's got your name underneath it. And the number one question that we get from people, I've got a lot of them that we're going to get to, is this legal? But you don't seem to be scared to put your face out there. So am I correctly inferring like you're not a Thomas Crown Affair intergalactic global thief? You're you see where I'm going with this?
I don't know what that reference is, but to kind of clear it up,
kind of badass.
We think that these markets, first of all, there's a whole kind of under the hood market structure thing that I can get into, but this is something that could have tremendous social value. There's not a lot of volume. We don't take custody of anyone's money. And, we basically are just the interface for people who hold their own money in their cryptocurrency wallets to participate in these contracts. And it's not peer-to-peer. People don't trade with one another. There is this market structure that's basically an automated market maker, which is, on-chain. And effectively, you're trading against a liquidity pool. And what you're actually doing is you're shifting the weights of the different outcome tokens in a liquidity pool. And that is a proxy for price discovery. So this is kind of a weird concept to understand, but basically the market structure is designed particularly for information elicitation. And then just, to elaborate on that, we're very early stage. We're still in beta. And, we are missionaries for the concepts of market-based journalism and, helping people make better decisions by leveraging markets and fighting and combating misinformation. And that is our North Star. But we're very early. We're using a lot of experimental tech and we're open-minded.
Pratik, I feel like you can probably sacrifice an animal and make a burnt offering to information markets and the mission of us betting not speculatively for the purposes of research. But maybe the best thing to do at this point would be to see if Shayne wants to answer. Reach down into that mailbag and answer some of the questions that our audience has for his. Are we calling it a trading platform? I guess it sounds like from the vocabulary you just introduced. What are we calling it?
Information markets. I mean, we can get to those questions, but if you guys want to ask a bit more about the product first,
Is it good?
Yeah, it is great. You can go and see on Discord and on Twitter, and people have been really excited. Another thing to add is all this financial logic is entirely out of our control. We have no edge in terms of participating in the markets or having some sort of backdoor. It's entirely open source, fully transparent. The general idea is with these information markets is that there's next to no fees. People can participate in a wide variety of markets and take advantage of blockchain technology whilst having it still be really easy and accessible to regular people. So, for people who use PredictIt, there's likely to be some overlap where people can also take advantage of these markets, both as from a more speculative perspective, but also in terms of observing it and just from an alternative data perspective.
Actually, one of the things you talked about overlap with PredictIt users. Well, I don't know if you're aware of this, but one of the things people love the most about PredictIt is it's sort of a community. So we had a great question from one of PredictIt's number one power traders. I think J Mark's ranked in the top 10 all traders, and he asked on the question of community, can we shitpost in a comment section and call each other cucks? Is that something that your platform enables?
Yeah, I saw that. That got a laugh out of me. We're going to add comments and a social element. Like a big part of our vision is this idea that there's no accountability when people are sharing their opinions, and that's really the core.
Love that.
Of misinformation. And people should be able to challenge each other to put their money where their mouth is and signal that they've done it themselves. Even if it is a small scale, market that's designed more for information rather than an institutional exchange or something like that. The comments will be big, and obviously, I've seen some predicted comments that are very vile. I can't get ahead and talk about moderation yet, because we'd have to just
do blockchains. I thought the whole point of blockchains was not to moderate. Are you gonna be so sensitive about 4-letter words the way predicted is?
No, not 4-letter words, but there's definitely something where there's definitely some types of content when it's taken to a certain point that we'd have to assess.
Pratik, you want to pull a letter out of the mailbag?
Well, the number one question, as you saw that we got, were related around legality. Maybe I'll just open with the general question here from Tuckleg. How legal is Polymarket?
Yeah, well, as I explained just before, I pretty much said all I have to say. It's actually, we have great legal counsel who are the best in the world with this stuff, and we're very open to iterating in order to do things the right way. But technically, it's company policy to not really delve deeper than that.
Well, one question I had, and I was interested, you spoke a lot about the social purpose or public policy rationale of prediction markets. And that was one of my questions. Are you oriented around public policy and public benefit, or are you more just, do you want to give gamblers whatever they want? It sounds like you very much have a social purpose. I guess the question is, do you plan to partner at all with an academic partner or a nonprofit or anything like that?
Great question. So a couple things obviously the former is what drives us. You can ask me any time of the day, no matter who I talk to, that is our North Star. If we were to do the latter, the product, the approach would be just entirely different, and that's why I'm confident to come on here and evangelize, because I know that in a way, this is it kind of comes down to this philosophy that this information, which is incredibly accurate and unbiased, is something that actually could have a significant impact on decision making for policy and for voting and for the way that regular people lead their lives. And I don't think that it's moral or justifiable to try and censor that, to make it, to try and police the way that people are receiving information to make their decisions. So that's the way that we look at it. And then we have spoken to a lot of people really closely. I'm just very grateful for the help from David Rothschild and David Pennock, who both are deeply intertwined with academia and politics. I would love to formally partner with an academic institution. It would definitely be in our roadmap. I think that another thing that would be awesome is and which we've been reached out to before, is kind of citations and being a data point for data journalists.
Yeah, so I guess building on the regulatory stuff. So this one's from Jason Pipkin. Who is creating and resolving the markets? Number one. 2, does it use Augur protocol? And then he asks, if Polymarket people are the market creators and resolution authority, how do they plan to escape the CFTC?
So as for the first question, basically, obviously a lot of the markets you have, you'll see that we get suggested them, tweeted to them or whatnot, but we have a suggestion form, which is pretty much where the markets come from. We mainly do markets that get suggested from a lot of different people. The thing about letting people list their own markets, it's actually not easy to define a market in a way that, one, maximizes the informational value, and 2, doesn't have an ambiguous resolution source. So those are some things that other...
Yeah, Predict users know all about that.
Yeah. So that's something that we wanted to basically moderate and curate ourselves out the gate to make sure that, it's terrible user experience. And this goes to the second point too, which is that we internally, the market resolution and the sources are all very explicitly defined. But in the case of ambiguity, we internally decided just, in a way that is kind of intuitive for people. And we made those decisions because, Augur, which isn't fully functional. It is what it is. We don't use Augur. Augur's been around for a while, like 5-something plus years with tons of money, but they really haven't built something usable yet. For us, we wanted to prioritize UX and take advantage of blockchain tech, but also make sure that the people who use this, don't end up, because of some sort of game theoretic technicality, losing money or having something happen that they didn't want to happen. So
we call that a rules cuck in the political gambling space.
Around a lot in the predictive space. It's not a word in my vocabulary personally, but
it's a much feared. The rules cuck panther is a much feared market resolution authority. In fact, we had a question. I don't know where that bum Zoltar is, but Zoltar was going to ask you that specifically. So, Shayne, what is your rules cuck resolution process? Do you have a council of elders? Do you have some sort of protocol? Predicted users are used to situations where the government's been shut down for 3 months, but because of poorly written rules, the market resolved that there was no shutdown because some dumb Twitter account never rolled over to the right phraseology. So do you guys have a plan to sort of moderate the weird stuff that inherently happens in these markets?
Yeah, well, we are at a point where the entire product, the entire process is almost entirely autonomous. But there's a couple parts that we have basically, as I said, curated just so that, as we're experimenting and learning more about our users, something doesn't malfunction. And we haven't had a problem with that yet, but resolving these markets, when we sort of build upon the market suggestions from the community, we try and be very explicit in terms of defining it, but there hasn't been a problem thus far. I think it would really be a case by case basis. But the end goal is, there's this thing called the Oracle problem where you can have a programmatic and incentive based model, likely with some element of reputation involved, that enables formulaic and systematic resolution of these markets. But that's something that's a lot more, involves technical R&D and whatnot. And, for us, it's really about product. And there's so much, noise and misinformation right now that it felt like just in the public interest to try and improve this and get this out as quickly as we could.
I want to ask a different question, because most people who gamble on anything are on some level obsessed with money or making more of it, or maybe losing more of it fast. There's definitely a culture of cuckery on Predicted about losing money. So we had one of our power users, SK Forecasting, I think his real name's Sean. He wanted to know, are my bets going to be at the mercy of crypto price swings?
Yeah, I should have made that clear earlier. Basically, all the markets are denominated in USDC, which is a regulated US dollar stablecoin by Coinbase.
You just used a lot of words that I don't know. Regulated US dollar stablecoin.
Basically, there's a coin that is a 1-to-1 US dollar by Coinbase. That is what all the markets are denominated in. And if you want to acquire it on the site, in stage 2, you need to go through a compliance process and do KYC and AML, and it's limited to very small amounts, and it's there's different amounts for different geographical locations and then also different jurisdictions. But you can also just go to Coinbase.com and get it. So there's no exposure to any sort of crypto volatility.
How is that possible? You're talking to a bunch of idiots right now, and all I know is what I've read about Bitcoin and Ethereum, which is the value can change 20% in a day. I can have a Lamborghini tomorrow if I buy it at the right time. What did someone just make a little Witcher's brew, Cauldron Bird and Cauldron Bubble, and all of a sudden a coin came out and rose up to the surface and was like, this coin shall be stable and you can use it to buy normal things? Or am I just going to fall asleep if you explain how the USD stable coin is different from what us idiots know about in the blockchain space?
I'll run through it real quick. So, essentially Ethereum, the currency Ether, is used to pay gas fees. We, with stage 2, are moving to, we're using under the hood, a lot of cutting edge technology, but it's called layer 2. It's basically a scaling solution so that all the transactions are a lot cheaper. All the users of Polymarket currently know that you have to have Ether to pay transaction fees. And that's due to the nature that, again, all the logic of the markets and custody and how the money moves is all entirely open source and transparent. And we didn't even write it. It's using something that's existing on Ethereum. And because of that, you can think with Predicted, it's like you deposit with a credit card and your money is held with some sort of payment processor or escrow, and you're trading around on their site. But with this, there's a token which is redeemable 1-for-1 on Coinbase.com. And that token floats around through the logic of the market so that everyone who uses it is fully clear that it's entirely transparent and it works the way that that it's intended to, and that it's advertised to, and that people can audit it themselves and make sure that it works the way that they expect it to. So you can really just think from a UX perspective, it becomes very similar to other sites where there's US dollars, but it's just under the hood done in a transparent manner where Polymarket at no point is an intermediary. We're really thinking of ourselves as doing data visualization and letting people who have USDC interact with these contracts.
So let's pretend that I'm Zoltar, who on some days starts barking about how Trump's going to win this election, which very few high-level traders seem to think. But let's say that I buy Trump at 30% odds or whatever he's at today. I triple my money. All of a sudden, I'm rich. I'm doing like the Polymarket dance. Could I just click to get my money out, or do I have to pass it through like Coinbase to an Ethereum wallet to like a weird guy who's also selling like opiates and mining Bitcoin in China, and then it comes across on the ocean or in a weird unwrapped pack? Like, how do I get my money out?
Yeah, so those stigmas have really nothing to do with Polymarket.
Let's crush it, bro. Come on. Of
course. So the way that it would work is obviously just as with any of these markets, you can sell it into the liquidity pool, not on an order book, not peer to peer. You're not selling it to someone else. You're basically just giving it back. You're giving it to the liquidity pool, and that's shifting the odds. And the price that you get and the slippage that you get is a function of how much liquidity is in the pool. And then that's a way to get just liquidity at any time, early liquidity. Or you can do a resolution and you can redeem every share for 1 USDC, which is again done on chain programmatically in a fully transparent and open source manner. And then after that, you would need a withdrawal likely to a Coinbase account and then just be able to cash out.
So when you say liquidity pool, again, you're not referring to Bitcoin farmers or nefarious powers of the dark web?
A lot of it comes back to AMMs are very automated market makers, which is basically, I'm not going to delve into it because none of your audience cares, but it's
no. I assure you, some of them do. We've got some data.
I dive into it, but basically an automated market maker is a solution to the problem that in these long tail of markets that are not designed to have tons of volume, right? Like, if people are going to do illicit activities, they're moving tons of money. On Polymarket, it's very small stakes in the scheme of things, and it still produces this invaluable information, right? So, and it has this, benefit for academia even. The idea is that on these order books, there's huge spreads oftentimes on these long tail markets. And then if you want to sell, there's no one even on the other side, because these markets are not markets that sports books run. They're markets that are particularly designed for information elicitation and to create social value. So with an AMM, you basically have supply side that's just, always present. At any given moment, you can sell into this AMM. So it's really instead of having this chicken and egg problem, you just have to focus on sourcing demand for the marketplace. And it actually comes from early Robin Hanson research. He designed this thing called the logarithmic market scoring rule, which is similar to what we use, but it's just a different curve, basically. So the calculation for the prices that are quoted is different. But all kind of needs to be understood is that at any given moment, you can sell into or buy into this pool.
I mean, it sounds to me almost like a flash trading pool, like a bank would have, or something like that. That there's some like robotic transacting that goes on for marginal value that other players in the pool. I don't mean that in a stigmatic way. I'm trying to understand it so that
it's just to sit at a tight spread and take either side and not have any sort of knowledge of what was going on inside. It's like a very dumb market maker, but
just like me.
So it's by no means like it has nothing to do with market makers like Jump or whatever. But the cool thing about it is that there's always a tight spread, which is perfect for forecasting and information elicitation. but not at all like profit maximized or optimized for volume or something like that. So it's kind of pioneering a new way, particularly for information markets, which is like the theme that goes through with pretty much everything we do with Polymarket.
I wanted to go back to Pipkin's comment, and then also we got a second one related from Old Bull TV, but just to pin you down a bit. So do you plan to approach the CFTC and get permission or a no action letter, or do you plan to go around them, or what is going on there?
We have great legal counsel, and I just go by what they say.
That's a good answer.
So you're not going to talk about any interaction you've had with them, whether you're getting a no action letter, because like I mean, I'll read you what Old Bull TV. This is from Flip.
I read all the comments.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll read it for our viewers. I mean, he's saying, building on crypto markets and making accessible from fiat is a compelling model, but it by definition centralizes things, gives guys and windbreakers a door to kick down.
Yeah, so that is, I totally see where he's coming from, but it's actually a misunderstanding. So let me clarify that. The way of getting the fiat into USDC is entirely regulated, whether you go through Coinbase or whether you go through a separate payment processor. And we first of all don't even enable that. But the services that we embed into our product already have compliance baked in. And then once you have that, you're just interacting with smart contracts on chain. So at no point are we intermediating anything or custodying anything or even taking fees. It's basically nonprofit. What we really focus on is the information. That's where we're at. That's how I think about it. And then the actual semantics of that from a legal perspective, we invest heavily into having the best legal counsel. And I would
putting that Ethereum you bought in 2014 to work with some high school lawyers somewhere in Midtown, right?
I mean, I was really young. I had very, very little money to put in, but it's just fun to be involved for the ride. The numbers, if I was older, it would have been crazy, but the numbers are the multiple is great. The numbers aren't that impressive. In fact, we actually have raised capital, so that's really one of the things we allocate that to.
Can you say anything about your partners? If you can't, there's a highly classified. Can you say anything about your business model? Is this a thinly veiled plan to take over the world the way Facebook started with some social candy in 2003 and now pulls the strings on the entire planet?
Yeah. Business model there, what we really love is all about information and demystifying the things that are going on. And we also think that, you don't necessarily need volumes that come anything close to trading markets, in institutional finance in order to accomplish that, right? And that's why we're so open-minded in terms of, and that's why we're public in terms of, all this stuff that people are asking, because our goal is not inherently, in the crosshairs with that, right? So one thing that's super cool is basically using markets for decision making, which is like decision markets, also similar to the concept of futarchy. We're exploring that. We could explore proprietary markets for.
Ooh, this is getting cool. This is getting like sci-fi novel-y, and I totally see the use case now.
Yeah, it's in the name, Polymarket, right? We want to have a lot of markets. I am a nerd when it comes to market structure. I've read all about all the different, alternative market structures that are very different from just typical exchange models that you see. I am confident that this is something that absolutely should exist, that is in the public's interest, and determined to make it work.
So I feel like there's sort of like two loose ends that our users are going to want to know about. And the first one is like, they want to know that it's secure. So like Brendan Murphy wrote us and asked, how do I know, quote, my shit won't get hacked? And we had someone else. We had Zach, Villaglianco. He's going to get massacred for mispronouncing his name. But the question is, when is 2.0 coming out? You've been saying there's a 2.0. Should people wait, or do you think that the site's ready for prime time?
Again, the contracts have been deeply audited. and there haven't been, for the people who use this protocol. So basically, these German guys have written all these contracts that are special purpose for this. And we really are just letting people who have the pertinent crypto assets interact with them, which is like, not intermediating. We're not taking fees. We're not holding or custodying anything. And that's been deeply audited. And there hasn't been any sort of hack or anything around that. I would say that I feel very comfortable letting people use this in the protocol that they built in terms of security. Obviously, anything on their blockchain, there's some risk, and someone put recently, you can actually on-chain get insurance for a smart contract hack, and I'm sure it would be very cheap, but it's been totally fine so far. And then for the second, stage 2 is live. If you DM us, we'll get you on it. I'm really excited to share with people, but we are very hyper aware that the audience of outside of crypto, who we think can get a lot of value out of this, are not going to be that is inherent with any beta product that was with stage 1, which you have to have MetaMask for. And MetaMask, when it was MetaMask, you really just had your own wallet that you can use for any application, and you're interacting directly with Ethereum. So Polymarket is the site that makes it easy to use that and visualize the data, but someone else could spin up another site that did the exact same thing, right? Because it's all just on chain. With what we're doing now, we're using all this cutting edge technology under the hood. There's things like someone posted a tweet, who I'm sure found out about Polymarket from you guys, that there was like an error message that instead of it saying this hasn't loaded yet, or instead of it saying you don't have a balance, it said like something that was very similar to like an error message you get in a terminal when trying to like run an application. So those are things that we need to iron out. We know that there's things with blockchains, in order for it to be decentralized, like waiting a couple minutes, 8 minutes for a deposit to go through, or things like that. And we want to just make it easy for users who aren't necessarily accustomed to dealing with that, to know that it's okay, and maintain that intuitiveness and make people calm, so that once it's on the site and it's in this layer 2 scaling shoes, and everything's really quick and fast and free. And again, because we're not an intermediary, we take no fees.
All right, cool. So where can they find you, Shayne? Where can they find Polymarket?
Poly.market right now, but we're switching to polymarket.com. We acquired that recently. And, on Twitter right now, it's /poly.market. We're probably gonna have to change that because there's no dot before market now. And then me personally, my name's Shayne Coplan. I'm not hard to find, and I'm down to chat with anyone about anything. We're a really transparent team. We're not hard to find. We're always open to chat. Obviously very busy. I've gotten to a level of busyness that is insane, but I'm online all the time. So, what's important is for us to engage with the people who really get a lot out of this product, and learn more from them, and be candid and be transparent. And, what I will say is, like, this is an idea that stems from academia, right? This is, if this was, something that could go and harness lots of volume, like these gambling products would have done it, but what we're doing is building a product literally optimized for information elicitation. That's something that has immense social value, and I think could benefit everyone in the world at scale. So, it's a mission of ours. We're super passionate about it, and always happy to chat with anyone. I don't feel like we have anything to hide, just very optimistic about the future, and, engaging with everyone, learning as we go. Obviously, there's going to be mistakes along the way, but, I know our heart's in the right place. So,
well, thanks for joining us today. We'll get some feedback from the boys, and maybe we'll talk to you again sometime soon.
Yeah. One thing I'll add is that, stage 2 will be out very soon. It's already live. Anyone can DM us on Twitter /poly.market, and we'll hook you up with it, or on Discord. And we'll onboard you early. And for some people who give feedback, maybe we'll even give you some free money.
Cool. All right, guys. This has been Star Spangled Gamblers. Thanks for joining. Thank you, Shayne.
Guys.